Let me firstly welcome you here tonight. This evening I suggest that we thank Nick in arranging the occasion for the Basel meeting in a very wonderful way.
Yay!
Tonight I'd like to say something about the Totalisator website that Brian has developed over the last many years. Particular attention has been found in the history of following the life and work of Sir George Julius. I'm afraid I don't feel
What's the matter, Neville?
I'm sorry, I just don't continue.
All right, that's...
You want me to
Phil, you do it.
Warwick?
Yeah.
I'm sure Neville will give some ad hoc here, but can everyone hear me?
Yes, Warwick.
This is a presentation to speech to Brian Conlon, written by Brian Conlon. Firstly, let me welcome you all here this evening, and I suggest we thank Nick. We can give him another round of applause. To keep all of us ex-ATLers and these interlopers who turn up each year, and thank everyone for doing so. Tonight I would like to say something about the Totalisator website that Brian Conlon has built after many years of research and hard work putting together the history of the Totalisator while paying particular attention to its founder, Sir George Julius. Along the way, Brian and Narelle have travelled far and wide, both for the history of, both nationally and internationally, visiting museums and racetracks in their search for the history of the man and his miraculous Totalisator machines. I think I would be correct in saying that most of you here tonight have spent time browsing the extensive Totalisator website, now consisting of many contributions by people who worked for or were associated with ATL over the many years. Neville, I have been a friend of Brian for some 30 odd years. God bless you. He first came to my notice when he joined the company working with Ron Hood in the installation department. In fact, we had actually worked on the building of the new Queen Elizabeth grandstand at Randwick Racecourse. Brian was working then for AWA on the CCTV and sound systems. Pray silently. At that time, Neville was project managing the tote side. However, their paths never crossed, luckily for him. Crossed whilst on this installation, which historically was the first CCT system installation on any racecourse. When Brian became an on-course computer tote engineer manager in Brisbane, we did not get to see each other very often. About the year 2001, I was involved with the Powerhouse Museum's 100 Years of Wagering in Australia exhibition. I met up with Brian and Bob Plemmel in the archives of the Powerhouse Museum. This meeting was the start of literally hundreds of emails answering and asking questions that Brian had in relation to the tote company's long history. Brian was fascinated by the Julius Totalisator machine at Brisbane's Eagle Farm Racecourse. He took it upon himself to get the machine restored to a stage where all its working parts could be viewed, while Brian explained its functions to the people who visited the site. The restoration involved many ex-tote engineers trying to get together the missing bits and pieces, and emails were flying. Many emails were flying regarding the signage were finally answered by an ex-New Zealand engineer, Del Lincoln, and Bill Johnston, both who had had long associations with the Julius electromechanical totes. In recent times, the Eagle Farm Historical Totalisator site has been recognised and a dedication plaque was presented by the state governor. Of late, people have gathered here tonight have long thought that Brian's work should, in some way, for his passionate efforts in promoting ATL Totalisator history, So a group of us got together and were able to source a unique piece of Julius Tote memorabilia. Would you like to take over? Which would...
I hope you enjoy this. It'll be something that you will surprise for.
I bet it will. Thank you very much.
Behind the site. Something to...
And I think we should all congratulate Neville on producing a brilliant piece of
Well, I'm totally overwhelmed.
So just
It's a
take,
slide rule.
take it out and have a look at it.
I hate to admit I've used these.
Yes, so have many of us. Mine was never as fancy as that one, though.
It's an analog computer.
Brian, hold it up again.
Sorry, Brian.
Oh, you taking pictures?
So somehow I've been elevated to historian of ATL. There are many more involved in this, and Neville obviously is a primary player in it. And without Neville and Bill Johnson and people like them, this history would have been very lame. As we all know, that's one of the things that amazed me about the Julius Tote when I first saw it. The propensity for it to disappear. I saw 4 of these systems bulldozed in Queensland, and I mean that literally. The bulldozers just ran over the tote houses that the Julius Tote were in. There were very few people who were interested in the history. There were many people, particularly racetrack personnel, who would have cannibalized these systems for silly things that they needed, pieces of metalwork or anything. It was a matter of bashing one's head against the brick wall to get the slightest bit of interest. There were a few allies. One was a committee member of the Brisbane Amateur Turf Club. And when his committee voted to bulldoze the system there, he went on a rampage of shouting, "They're vandals, they're all vandals." And I totally agree with that. So it's people that bring this history to life. Neville has done much towards that, and Bill Johnson has provided information from the Julius Tote. Most of us here, of course, are from the electronic era, and there are people who provided information about that. But without these two, I think there would be very little known about the Julius Tote. It's an interesting evening that this should happen tonight, because there are a couple of other players in this as well, outside the company. One of them is Tony Shelshear, who's up against the back wall there. Tony is George Julius's great-grandson. He has got the most amazing collection of Julius memorabilia that I've seen anywhere, and he has done wonders to promote his history, not only of George, but of his company, Automatic Totalisators, which we come together essentially every year to celebrate. And we have another person here, Bob Moran. There he is there. And Bob, I think, outdoes me in interest in this company's history. He has worked on the Julius Tote. He's not worked in the totalisator industry. He's in mechanical engineering. He's got a company that was in that field. And since retirement, he's produced something which he calls the Discovery Shed. And the Discovery Shed has a strong focus on the Julius Tote. He was instrumental in restoring 2/3 of the Broadmeadows Julius Tote to a level of functionality such that it could be demonstrated in the Powerhouse Museum, an expo there on gambling. So I'm indebted to Bob for all the things that he's taught me about the Julius Toad, and to Tony also for providing a hell of a lot of information about his family and his knowledge of ATL and Julius Toad. I can ramble on like this for ages.
Just to show you that, Tony can like this.
Okay, well, this is from Tony Shelby. To recognise the contributions you have made to the Assembly and presentation of Toad history, we wanted to find something to give you that was in some way connected to your field of IT and computing. In browsing around the internet, we came across an item in the Powerhouse Museum that belonged to Professor Alan Bromley, with whom you are familiar. We managed to find an identical item on eBay, which we would like you to have as a token of our gratitude.
Wow, thank you very much.
After Brian has opened, remarked that it has had previous owners'
Well, yes.
name on the back.
Photograph.
But that it's not very visible. So you should not detract from the item.
Who owned it, Brian? Have a look.
As an old convict receiving of stolen goods, has a legal a number of years where you can't be prosecuted. So. Thank you, Tony.
I will say one more thing. The name Alan Bromley has been brought up, so I have to mention him as one of these devotees. I'm still trying to find the name. Well, it looks like Julius to me. Oh, how did I go by this? George Julius.
I would say George's.
I will really cherish this, yes. Alan Bromley was looking at the Broadmeadows Julius Toad with some members of the Powerhouse Museum. Their intention was just to preserve a few parts of it. And Matthew Connell is another one of those people who's devotee to this subject. He spent many years making the Totalisator history a theme topic of expertise for the Powerhouse Museum. He's now the principal curator there. Matthew tells a story that he was finishing up for the day as with a few others from the Powerhouse Museum, and they were taking a few bits that they had taken from the Julius Toad Reserve, and were on the way back to Sydney. And they said, "Come on, Alan, we're off." And Alan said, I just want a few more minutes to say goodbye to the system. He remained considerably longer. The 2/3 of that system was housed in Alan Bromley's home to keep it from being discarded. Some of you probably don't know what a Julius Toad looks like. They were very large. They were, the mainframe could be regarded as a behemoth machine. The ticket issuing machines were large and heavy, and this caused Alan Bromley marital problems. When they removed it from his home, when they eventually found a place for it in the Powerhouse Museum, museums have difficulty with allocated space. I remember the the principal curator of the Queensland Museum telling me when he saw the Julius Toad at Eagle Farm racetrack, which I was trying to find a home for, and he said, I'm having trouble finding space to fit a new item about this size. So there was some astronomical difference between that and the Julius Toad. So they're large and heavy, and when they removed it from Alan Bromley's home, they found that his kitchen had sunk under the weight. Alan Bromley was a professor at Sydney University and did a lot of work in the history of computing and had a fascination for the Julius Toad. So there are people who have been promoting our history for a long time who are very definite nutcases beyond my case of nuttiness. Thank you. So,